How you doing, guys? I had a subscriber reach out in response to one of my videos the other day, and he asked me to kind of divulge my thoughts on diet and what I eat and things like that. So I'll go right back to the start. When I was born prematurely. I was on an incubator and stuff like that, and my mum has always said that I struggled to eat. I didn't like food. I was preoccupied with everything else in the world, and not much has changed. I'm not really a foodie, and throughout my professional sports career, especially in mountain biking, where I had to do thousands of road kilometers as well, then I struggled to be able to eat enough food. It was the main criticism that I had. Every 3 months I'd have testing done at the university through the sports science department, and the biggest problem was food intake, is that I literally couldn't eat enough food, and I was eating all day every day when I wasn't training, trying to eat as much as I physically could, and it still wasn't enough calories wise. And I mean, I had a really good diet. I pretty cleanly. I got told to mix it up and add a lot more fat, eat a lot more ice cream and stuff like that. But it was still always a big struggle. And I've spent my life obsessed with martial arts and cycling. And I've got a background in sports science through the New Zealand Federation of Sports Medicine. I've done strength and conditioning qualifications through the American Council on Exercise, Fitness Leader Network. I was one of the very first personal trainers for Les Mills in New Zealand decades ago. And I've spent my life training my body, learning about my mind, and of course, diet goes into that. So throughout all the research that I've done, and I've experimented with every sort of diet you could ever imagine. Me personally now, and I train, so I run twice a week, I roll twice a week, and do weights twice a week, and then I teach probably four or five classes a day, 4 days a week, and then a few classes on the other days. I have 2 hard days, 2 medium, an easy and a rest day. That's ideal. So I've got a double peak format. So 2 hard days. So for example, if I rolled hard in the morning and went for a run in the afternoon, that would constitute a hard day. Yeah. If I do a really hard weight session, then that by itself could constitute a hard day of training. If I teach like 4 or 5 classes that day, I'll use that as an active rest day. So I'll nominate one of my big teaching days, Tuesday or Thursday, as like my active recovery day, because I'm moving all day long, but I'm not like stressing myself out physically or anything like that. So in terms of diet, there's so much conflicting evidence, and really a lot of it depends on your body type, what you like. I think genetics play a huge part in it. The food that you grow up eating as a child, for example, like I grew up on like typical vegetables, meat, diet, porridge for breakfast kind of stuff, Scottish, Irish heritage and stuff like that. So that tends to be the food that I kind of gravitate towards, I guess. Me personally, I don't usually eat much until lunchtime. I do all of my eating at night because it's about the only chance I get, because I'm sitting around like not doing too much. So my students will be aware sometimes on the mat I'm burping and stuff because I'm trying to time all my food, and I have to eat a ton of calories. I'm only 77 kilos. I'm reasonably lean. I don't know what body fat percentage I am. I'm guessing like 10 or 12 or something like that. I don't know. I don't really pay attention to it. Don't measure it. Weighed myself once in 6 months. I always sit around about the same. But in terms of diet, I think you just have to work out what works for you. The gentleman that asked me is counting all his grams of protein and all these sorts of things. I do nothing like that. I literally just try and eat as much food as I possibly can. And that involves ice cream every single night. I almost live on coconut water and bananas. I eat a lot of oranges. A typical day of eating, for example, like today, I had like a banana at home. It's now like 6:30 in the morning or something. 6:15, so I probably won't eat until lunchtime because I've got classes this morning that I'm teaching. And then I'll get home and then I'll kind of start eating for the day. Today I'm not training hard probably. I might have a roll during class, I'll see. But it's pretty much a non-training day because yesterday I trained quite hard. Yesterday I went out mountain biking for like 3 hours. My body's not used to that, so like that's quite hard on it. So yeah, I don't do anything like that. I literally just try and eat as much food as I can. I eat a ton of raisin bread, I eat a ton of bread, I live on carbohydrates, I pay no attention to my protein intake. Most carbohydrate sources have protein in them anyway. And I do eat quite a bit of protein, I guess, especially at night when my body's recovering. During the day, I avoid vegetables like you wouldn't believe. I do eat a little bit of salad sometimes or some vegetables, but they pack almost no nutritional content at all. I went years and years without eating any vegetables whatsoever when I was in my 30s? Yeah, I would have been in my 30s. Living in my gym, sleeping on the floor, and literally was just training all day, every day, and then doing security work all night. I had no time to prepare food or anything like that. I literally just lived on muesli and fruit for years, and there was absolutely no performance change. Even John Danaher, when he was asked about diet, said that he's yet to see any athlete significantly improve performance by changing their diet. And George St. Pierre at the peak of his career was living on McDonald's. Again, it's ease of calories. If you're training 6 or 8 hours a day every day, you don't have time to go home and prepare meals and stuff like that. You're lucky if you even get to go home. So he said that literally the McDonald's around the corner from the gym is where George spent most of his time if he wasn't training. And it's just calories. You don't really care where they come from. I guess he might be looking at his macros a little bit, but you're literally training all day, every day. You can eat everything you want pretty much, and it's not going to have a negative effect. It's not going to make you fat. Only total calories matter. So, for example, people say, oh, you shouldn't eat at night and all these sorts of things. I do all of my eating at night because during the day you're really busy and you're running around and training all the time. You can't eat big volumes of food. It really upsets my stomach. I can't eat for like 3 hours before I train anyway. So usually I get up, I'll have like maybe a banana, I'll have a coffee, have an ice bath, then I'll go out and run for a couple of hours, or I'll go mountain biking for a couple of hours, or I'll be in the gym for like an hour and a half. One of those three things. Unless it's a rest day, every single morning I get up and go walking for like 40 minutes, 45 minutes with my wife. That's how I kind of warm my body up. Then I'll go off and do my training. But yeah, I've read a lot about diet, and one of the very first things, there was like, I can't remember the name of the book now. I don't think it was Periodization. Periodization by Tudor Brumper is an amazing book, but I'm sure that there was a food book alongside of that I read, and literally in it the first words are like, if you're an athlete and you're training a lot, and I mean by training a lot I mean at least two hours a day, 3 hours a day, and you can eat almost anything you want if you're really active, and I'm hyperactive. I've been hyperactive all my life, and so I wake up in the morning and the accelerator is down. As soon as my eyes open, it's like go from the moment that I wake up. So I hate it at the moment. I can't stand it over summer because it's daylight at like 4 o'clock. So I'm wide awake at like 4:15, 4:30 in the morning. Typically classes aren't until like 10 o'clock in the morning. So I've got 6 hours. So I get up and I go out training, and then I've got class, and it just makes the whole day so much longer than it needs to be. And I need to eat even more food because I'm up even earlier, training even more. So I'm not the norm, you know, like, well, maybe, I don't know. I don't pay attention to what anybody else does in terms of jiu-jitsu and their training. Most jiu-jitsu guys overtrain. I think if you're on the mat, you know, you can roll like twice a week, you know, rolling hard twice a week, like that's a lot. For anybody over 35, 40 years of age, if you're rolling twice a week and you're rolling quite hard, like that's a lot. So I would suggest that you do weights on the other days and cardio. So if I do have to combine things, then what you want to do is, if you're over 40 and you want to enhance your recovery, you combine all your workouts together. So you always want to be training your uncontrolled environment first and your controlled environment second. So for example, like I screwed it up the other day, I went and did weights first, yeah, and which prematurely fatigued my body. Then I went to jiu-jitsu and then wondered why I tweaked my knee, because my body was prematurely exhausted, my nervous system was a wreck, and I went and wrestled after doing that and pinged my knee again, right? So that was my own dumb fault. So you want to train the uncontrolled environment first, do your jiu-jitsu first, yeah, because it's your priority, but mostly because it's the uncontrolled environment. That's where you need the most amount of focus and the most amount of attention to your body, you know, especially if you're trying to avoid injuries and stuff like that, or avoid existing injuries more likely. So once you've done that and you're tired, then smash a few bananas and some raisin bread, and then I'd take off and go to the gym, and with whatever energy you have left, then you can dedicate that to weight training, or you could do it like a couple of hours later, but you kind of do it in the same 6 or 8 hour block, and then that affords you a lot more recovery time. Instead of spacing them out like training every 12 hours, which is what a lot of people do. They'll train, say, lunchtime and night, or morning and then night, and then morning and then night. Your body's getting no recovery. You know, you'll be burning calories like crazy because you're training every 12 hours. But as you get older, you need more recovery time, but you're still trying to fit in all the components of fitness and jiu-jitsu that you're trying to accomplish, right? You're trying to find time to do yoga. You're trying to find time to get in the gym and lift weights. You're trying to find time to go run. You're trying to find time to get to jiu-jitsu. And so you're trying to figure out like how to put all these things together with, you know, and still have a relationship with your wife and be able to see your kids and have a job and things like that. So the best way to do that is to combine all your workouts, right? That's why a lot of the gyms that have weights and stuff like that in the gym, awesome. Do your jiu-jitsu and then maybe smash a coffee if you need some extra caffeine or energy, and then do your weight training immediately afterwards, yeah? So you combine it into literally one workout, combining two aspects, or you can do jiu-jitsu and then get on the treadmill and run if you want, if you're trying to find time to put extra cardio in and stuff like that. But always uncontrolled environment first, and then the controlled environment like weight training or running or whatever it happens to be second. That's a good way to avoid injury. In terms of fueling my body, I live on carbohydrate. I always have. You know, people talk about like carnivore diets and stuff like this, and if you're in a, I mean, it depends on the sport that you're in. If you're weightlifting and stuff like that, and there's very little cardio work, or you're doing bodybuilding and things like this, then that's great, right? You know, the chance of you staying fully keto is like almost zero. Very few people can do it. You know, and some days, like if I'm having a recovery day, then I'm going to eat a lot more protein. You know, my body's going to crave it anyway. I can feel when my body's craving extra protein. I start, you know, wanting to smash tuna all the time and eat more steak and eat more cheese and stuff like that. And I tend to have a lot more protein, although I don't count any of it. I just have more protein on my recovery days. Depends how my body's feeling and what I've done to it training during the week. But certainly vegetables and stuff like that tend to be overrated. I really don't eat any and can perform super well. I've experimented with eating more. The only time I've really found vegetables useful is when I would go and stay on my grandmother's farm, and the vegetables there obviously come, you know, very organic and stuff, and the vitamins from those would be so strong that I would struggle to sleep at night. So yeah, that's interesting. But when I would go and eat normal vegetables from the supermarket, absolutely no difference. Found no change in performance. Just all the fiber would upset my body. I couldn't digest food as quickly, and that would be super annoying. So yeah, typically I have a lot of raisin bread, a lot of bread, peanut butter and jam, lots of fruit, oranges, papaya, grapes, a lot of blueberries. I have tons of blueberries. Yeah, just normal stuff. Tuna, steak, chicken, pasta, all of it. I just consume everything I can. And yeah, so if you've got a desk job and you train like, 3 times a week, then you're probably going to have to watch your diet more carefully. I don't avoid anything. I have like 4 or 5 beers each week. Usually Wednesday is my day off training and teaching and stuff like that. I work 7 days a week. I'm doing security work in the weekends and sometimes working late and stuff like that. So midweek is like, Wednesday is like my day off. It's kind of like my Saturday or Friday. It's Friday for most people, Saturday. So that's my chill out day where I try and do as little as possible physically, teach a little bit in the morning, might go for a run, probably not, and just eat as much food as I possibly can. When I was competing in jiu-jitsu, so training pretty much full time, 6 hours a day kind of thing, then I'd literally dedicate Monday as my eating day. And I would do as little physical exercise as possible. So I'd still be teaching 3 or 4 classes a day, but I'd really try and minimize my physical output, do as little as possible, and I would just eat as much as I physically could. And for me, like, it probably doesn't take that much, but I literally eat most days, especially at night. I'm trying to consume as much food as possible, and eating until I'm almost vomiting, which is not nice to think about, but like that's what's required to fuel my body. If I don't eat as much as I physically can at night, then the next day is going to be compromised. I'll get up in the morning, I have a coffee, maybe a banana or 2, and then it's training for hours on end. And then typically I'll finish that, then I start teaching, then I get a few hours off in the afternoon where I'm trying to eat, not eat too much because I've got classes that night. I don't want to be burping all the way through class. So I have to be careful with what I eat. Sometimes I'll make the mistake and have some vegetables or salad during the day, and that just tears my stomach up, and then I'm burping on the mat all night. So I try and avoid any sort of high fiber food during the day. I'll just have lots of, raisin bread, bananas, tuna, pasta, whatever I can find during the day. Take my classes, I'll have bananas, and I eat a lot of muesli bars, ones with like a lot of nuts in them, just again to increase the protein and fat content for more calories. And so I've always got muesli bars in my bag. I've always got muesli bars and food stashed in my glove box in the car. I've always got food around me. So if I'm traveling somewhere and I have a couple of hours in the car between places, I'll be trying to smash muesli bars and bananas and food during my transit so that I can get more calories in. So I have a unique problem where I'm trying to eat as much as I can, and if that dips even a little bit, then I find myself compromised the next day for sure. So in terms of recovery from injury and stuff like that, the gentleman was asking how many protein grams I don't pay attention to any of that. I've done that in the past. I've been really, really anal about all of my diet, and it made absolutely no difference. All it does is stress you out and make you, did I get enough of this? Did I get enough of that? The only thing that really matters is total calories. So how many calories are you expending? How many calories are you taking in? If you're not taking in enough calories, you're going to lose body fat. If you've got really low body fat, then it's going to really start impacting your recovery and performance. And I don't even count calories. I know kind of in my head where I'm at in terms of like how much exercise I've done that day versus how many calories I have to take in, how much food I have to eat. I don't count calories or anything like that. I pay zero attention to any of it. I kind of just go by how I feel, and usually I need to eat more. And my wife, I was considering bringing her on and letting her take part in this video, because like she would tell you like how difficult it is for the amount of shopping that she has to do to keep up with my eating and what I eat. I eat the same stuff all the time. I don't really change my diet at all. You know, again, I just find performance-wise, it makes no difference at all. So what I do is I kind of portion control most things. So for example, with ice cream, I would buy individual ice cream, so I know whether I've had one or whether I've had two, to save money, because ice cream's getting expensive now, so now I'll get tubs of it cheap, but I'll buy like little ice cream cones. So I'll have like 1 or 2 ice cream cones each night, and that's good. It's got good protein in it. When I was training a professional triathlon team, their nutritionist told them to eat a lot of ice cream because everybody likes ice cream and it's good recovery food. Not if you're lactose intolerant, I guess, but I've never had that sort of problem. What else? Supplements wise, I just take a multivitamin every day, sometimes twice a day. I'll take vitamin C tablets once a day, sometimes twice a day. I have creatine most days. I don't even know how much it is, whatever the little scoop is. I have like half of a scoop, stick it in my mouth. It's best to chase it down with some sugar, because most of the time creatine by itself doesn't have calories and it needs an energy source to be assimilated. So you want to have it with dextrose, or I have it with honey. I'll just stick my finger in the honey and lick my finger every time I have some creatine. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you other than that, like, you have to kind of figure it out yourself. There is no magic bullet. I don't think that, you know, maybe consuming extra protein when you're trying to recover from injury might help. I don't know. Yeah, I really don't know. Hire a nutritionalist to go through it with you, but in my experience, it makes almost no difference. Whether you're having lots and lots of carbohydrate. Again, as a cyclist, they've been talking about you know, high fat, low carb diets for decades and decades, and then you get like a Tour de France team or even amateur cyclists ride, you know, hundreds and hundreds of kilometers a week. You know, I was up to doing, you know, well over 1,000 a week when that was on the road. You know, then I got on my mountain bike training and weight training and running and stretching and BMX racing and all that sort of stuff that all goes into it. So for most athletes that are training really seriously, and I'm like over 4 hours a day, I would consider it to be serious, you really are just struggling to put enough calories in your body. You know, you're not really thinking about, I mean, when you eat matters more, because you're trying to figure out, like, I'm not going to have a big fat steak and then go get on the mat and try and wrestle. So you're like, okay, how am I going to fit in my food around my training? And that's more the question that as a serious athlete that you're trying to figure out for yourself, is like, what can I eat when? Yeah. And so if you're struggling between training sessions, then all I do is hit lots and lots of carbohydrate, sugary drinks, you know, fast digesting carbohydrates, stuff like that. In terms of recovery, then the faster you can get sugars into your body to replenish your glycogen stores, that's going to help. And then protein sources afterwards. But yeah, I think that it's really overrated, most nutritional advice. And I think I'm just watching a cockroach try and get onto my mat. With big roller door here, all sorts of bugs and stuff coming in now. So anyway, that's my unqualified, not a nutritionalist advice, which is you just got to work it out for yourself. And personally, I wouldn't get too obsessed counting grams of protein and counting grams of this. People that like that tend to overanalyze everything and try and break everything down. Overanalysis is almost the first sign of failure, because you're trying to avoid failure as opposed to seeking success. So when it comes to overanalysis and breaking everything down into like just train and just eat and focus on getting better, and for people who are very detail orientated, like that would drive them absolutely crazy. So again, you just have to work out what works for you and experiment with different foods, experiment with foods at different times, experiment with putting your training together in different blocks. In terms of like my job in terms of sports medicine was not on rehab, it wasn't in diet or anything like that. Mine is in performance development. So I would work as part of a sports medicine team, for example, and an athlete would get injured or a person would get injured, they go to the physio does their rehabilitation program. I'm not usually involved in the design of that at all. That's their business, because sports performance and rehabilitation are completely different things. There's a little overlap, of course. So typically the physio will look after the person for, let's say, 8 to 12 weeks or whatever it happens to be, until they're back to like normal health, right? And at that point, then the physio would hand over their file to me and say, hey, like inside that would be parameters that he wants the person to work within for a given period of time or a particular type of intensity or duration or whatever it happens to be. And then I take that file, meet with the person, talk about what they want to do in terms of their performance, and I would design a way for them to go from normal health and perform better. Maybe, and also taking into account the injury that they've just had and the parameters that the physio wants me to work within for a given period of time. And once they hit particular strength markers or endurance markers or whatever it happens to be, the guy's probably going back to the physio, every fortnight or 3 weeks during this. And then so there's communication between me and the physio about what the person can and can't do and how hard I should be pushing them, what I should be asking them to do or not do. And then, you'll get over that period, and then you can start getting the person to perform better. And so that's predominantly my area of interest is in athletic performance, not rehabilitation. That's a physio area. So, and when it comes to diet, again, we would have a nutritionalist on board. It's not our job to give, advice in terms of nutrition. It's very clear when you're working in a sports medicine environment like that. There's going to be small crossovers, but the management really doesn't want physios doing diagnosis. That's the doctor's job. And then they don't really want the performance coaches dabbling in rehab, because that's not our specialist area. But there are little crossovers, and over time you learn a lot about each other's jobs. But part of being professional is knowing where the boundary is and going, okay, well, you need to go see a physio now. I get that in the gym all the time. Some guy will twist his ankle or fall over doing something somewhere outside the gym, inside the gym, or he'll have a niggle of some sort. Hey Rob, I've got a niggle with my ankle, and I've rehabbed ankles hundreds of times of my own. I've smashed my ankle. I know a lot about ankle rehab. So I'll be like, okay, well, is it swollen? Is it painful? I'll go through the different things and I'll be like, okay, this is what I think you should do. And as soon as possible, get on a wobble board or a duo disc and start rehabbing your ankle and work. Or you haven't got one of those, stand on some pillows and stuff. So I know a little bit about rehab, especially all the rehab I've done for my body. So if somebody has a jiu-jitsu related injury, they've tweaked their shoulder or they've got a sore elbow from being arm locked or something like that, I can give them advice because I've been through it a million times. If it's persisting, then I send them straight to the physio. If it's still like that in 2 weeks and not improving, go straight to the physio, because that's their specialist area and they'll give you the best advice. So I could talk forever on performance development and stuff like that. Nutritional is not my thing. I have delved into it really deeply in the past and looked at it and broken down all my macros and all these sorts of things and found absolutely no performance benefit in any of it. again, working out what you can eat around your training without like throwing up and still allowing recovery between sessions. That's a very personal thing, and you have to kind of work that out yourself. I think that most people would be very surprised at the amount of junk food and stuff that athletes have to eat. Like you can't have a clean diet void of fat and all that sort of stuff. It just doesn't work. You need a lot of fat in your diet. You need a lot of calories. It's very hard to get enough calories in just eating carbohydrate and protein, because fat's got like 3 times the amount of calories. So if you're doing a lot of training, you're gonna need fat calories for sure, just to curb your hunger, and you're gonna be burning a lot of fat anyway, you know, so like it's not gonna hurt you. It's just gonna help. So working out like what fits for you and your lifestyle and the way that you're training. Like, are you just going to the gym once a week and doing a couple of jiu-jitsu sessions? Well, you probably don't have to do too much with your diet. Or are you like me and you get up in the morning and train for 2 hours and then train another 2 hours at night in your jiu-jitsu class, and you do that every day and your metabolism is just absolutely on fire all the time? Then you have to really look at like how you design your training throughout the week, how you design your training per month, how you design your training over a 6-month and year-long period. And periodization and designing those programs is kind of my specialist thing. That's what I'm into. So if you want me to do a video on like how I would lay out like a full-time training program, or even a part-time training program for a serious jiu-jitsu athlete, and by serious I mean somebody who's, you know, training at least 3 times a week on the mat, who's doing weight training, who's running, who possibly is looking at competing, probably is into competing and stuff like that, then like that's a whole nother kettle of fish, and that is kind of my specialist area, designing those kind of programs. So in a nutshell, personally, I don't think food matters that much. Work out what works for you, work out what works around the training that you're doing, and I wouldn't follow any particular fad diet. You know, like fads are fads, they're called that for a reason. I don't believe that anything to the extreme is useful. You know, eliminating all your carbs, I think that's, you know, I think for a lot of people they just lack self-discipline, and they just want one thing, they just want one answer, you know, and you see the same on the mat. If you give someone 2 answers, they're confused because they're going to bounce between the 2. People just want one answer. Okay, no carbs. They're like, all right, I can do that. Yes, sir. Because they don't have the self-discipline to be able to, you know, they overeat on carbohydrates, obviously, which is why they're trying to avoid them. But that's a self-discipline problem, you know. That's the way I see it. A lot of people, you know, I mean, like Joe Rogan's always talking about his carnivore diet, you know, but that's a guy that sits down and talks for 6 hours a day, and he's kind of short and stocky, and obviously gains weight quickly, which is why he's, you know, worried about it. And yeah, I mean his biggest thing recently, which was really obvious physically, was him stopping drinking alcohol. And his face has changed completely. He's got leaner, you can tell straight away. He doesn't have that puffiness and inflammation that people get from drinking a lot of alcohol. And he wasn't drinking a lot, you know, he wasn't getting drunk, but like he's a very social guy. So like, you know, at the end of the day, he'd have a beer here, and then the next day he'd have a glass of wine with dinner and maybe 2 glasses of wine there, and then socializing, you know, and throughout the week it's all adding up, but he's basically never alcohol free. You know, his liver's always working trying to digest alcohol, his body's always inflamed as a result of that. And so that's made a big difference to him, you know. Me personally, you know, like again, Wednesdays I'll have a couple of beers, you know, that's my day off. My body just loves the calories. The next morning, usually Thursday morning is my hard run day, because I've been resting most of the day Wednesday. I've consumed a lot of calories, including the calories from the alcohol, and all I'm going to do is use those calories. So like, I find it really useful. I can run for miles, because, and it's really common in the endurance mountain bike sport, for example, like 8, 12, 24-hour races, especially like the 8 and 12-hour guys, it's well known that the night before they'll have a few beers. They won't get drunk, or maybe a tipsy, but they'll have alcohol the night before because it's so easy to digest those calories. It's so easy to get a lot of calories in. They're mostly fat calories, yeah, and so like you've got an enormous amount of calories on board from the I think they usually drink beer, but you've got a lot of calories on board from that, and the next day you're going to expand, I don't know what, 10,000 calories, 15,000 calories or more if you're riding and racing a mountain bike for like 8 to 12 hours. That's huge calories, you know. So like the more calories you can get on board in the 24 hours before that without eating tons so that you feel bloated and lethargic, it does nothing but enhance your performance the next day. So for me, I've gone through periods where I don't have any alcohol at all, and my performance almost always drops just because of and I'm not having a lot, but just that calorie injection each week helps fuel my performance the next day, especially the next morning. I can run and ride forever, you know. It just feels like endless amounts of energy. So yeah, it's a fascinating and interesting topic that I'm not a specialist in. As I said, I've been through every possible diet you could imagine. When I'm doing full-time training, trying to get enough calories in is really, really difficult, and it's been the biggest thing that's hamstrung my performance in the past, especially in cycling. In jiu-jitsu, not so much, didn't really have so much of a problem. But then I didn't have to take in anywhere near as many calories. So yeah, it's an interesting topic. There's heaps of debate in the diet space and food space. Everybody's trying to make money from whether it's protein supplements or any of that stuff. 99% of the information you're getting is because people are trying to make money from it. So you can't really trust most of what supplement companies and diet fads are telling you anyway. Everybody's after a few dollars for their idea and thinks that what they're doing is right, and everybody else is wrong. And I just don't have that perspective. I'm like, you just have to figure it out yourself, and it's the same as jiu-jitsu. You're figuring out how jiu-jitsu works for you, and that's what makes it interesting. So in terms of specific diet stuff, protein helps recovery, sure. How much do you need? Well, work it out, right? You've got to work out your calorie needs and protein needs based on what you're doing, and your life is unique to you. And yeah, what I do with my body is kind of unique for me. Yeah, so as a 55-year-old guy, I train, well, I'm active for probably 8 hours a day, you know, but in terms of training, I'm probably training 4 hours a day, 3 hours a day, something like that. 2 hours a day would be very, very intense. And then I'm on the mat for hours and hours a day, burning more calories doing that. So you'll be fine. You work it out. My advice is I wouldn't stress about all that sort of micro stuff. You know, just do the rehab, eat as you can, listen to your body. Don't drink too much alcohol. For me personally, a little bit's okay. And enjoy your training, enjoy your life, and try and enjoy your food. For me, it's just a fuel source, so it's not really an enjoyment thing. I like bananas, I like ice cream. You know, I include the things that I enjoy in my diet because it's not a diet, it's just me trying to eat enough food. Bye.